Are you ready for another recap of Shadow Dragon? Cause guess what? Another one's coming up and it's even shorter! Okay, so there was a war, Marth fought the Dolar Empire, and then he killed the dragon. And yep, that's it. Shadow Dragon summarized in 3 text boxes. And the only additional information is, there were some heroes, they left for home after they kicked a dragon's butt. Whoa, wait, when did this happen? I don't think we destroyed any places this hard. Graw especially. I mean, maybe Grust, but like, Graw, we just destroyed some ballistas and then we killed a jackass and that was pretty much it. Only one important event took place. No others. Yep, it was just this marriage. Powerful army, I'm sure that won't come into play. You know, you should really proclaim yourself emperor before restoring the country. Otherwise it's just kinda awkward. Hey, yeah, I'm just here to help out, not to rule over you or anything. Excuse me, game, Cogs of Destiny is a chapter in FE7? You're getting your games mixed up? Whoa, check it out, Marth's running cross-country, look at him go! Dang! How much time was that, like 5 seconds? Jeez! Marth can really book it. That boy's got some legs. I question the use of the word subjugation. The Emperor of Arcania? Okay, so that was a little formal and very cold for Hardin. Thought we were pals, but no, apparently now it's all business. So what you're saying is Marth, Luke, and Draug are on the island where nobody goes. I'd imagine you don't get this cutscene if you're playing on casual, but yeah, this is here to tell you that we're out of the prologue. If you die, that person's dead forever. It's an actual death. Unless Marth or Iris are killed, we just don't get to use that unit anymore. Marth and Iris dying, of course, will result in a game over. This is pretty useful, however. We finally get the convoy. It's attached to Marth, so if you need items in the middle of battle, go up to Marth and take something from him. Otherwise, we just have a place to send our items now, which is extremely useful. But we'll check that out in a moment. First, we gotta talk. And we actually have the first of our base conversations. So, Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn was a game that really kinda gutted supports. And of course, at that point it was very much a downward trend, which I believed I mentioned in Shadow Dragon, but honestly, I feel like even if that game weren't a remake, it wouldn't have supports, because it just feels like that was the direction it was heading after Radiant Dawn. But yeah, Shadow Dragon had supports, but not support conversations. This game at least brings in base conversations. Deploy units on the same map, and they'll get points together, and eventually they can talk. Iris here can talk to every character in the game, and there's a small pool of characters who can also talk to one another. Ryan's conversation is pretty good, but we'll talk about it next time. Like supports in the previous games, there are 3 events, so yeah, we get 2 more conversations with Ryan. And of course here it mentions Gordon and Draug in addition to Aaron, because those are 2 characters you might not have actually seen in the prologue, because you could have gotten Ogma and Athena instead. How weird must it be to be Jagan speaking to a Jagan? Like, Jagan's basically being replaced by Aaron. Now Aaron gets the position of starting game paladin who's really not that good in the long run. Like, that's just gotta feel weird for both of them, really. Anyway, yeah, this cutscene really hammers home that, yeah, we're not gonna be using Aaron forever. In fact, you're probably not gonna be using him for that long in the first place. Iris, you're really sheltered, aren't you? Ah, so we're mentioning General Lorenz. Now, I believe I mentioned this in my Shadow Dragon LP, but in my first actually complete run of Shadow Dragon, I ended up murdering Lorenz. Keep in mind, I played New Mystery of the Emblem to completion before I played Shadow Dragon to completion, and General Lorenz is a fairly distinct character in this game. So yeah, apparently I just completely forgot about them, and then I killed him. I hope I didn't kill him with Marth, because that would have meant that I killed him knowing he exists in this game, and also with a character that could speak to him, and I should have noticed I could speak to him. Anyway, here's the starting area of the map, fairly simple. There's a village, so we can assume there's going to be a thief trying to burn it down. As you can see here, we have access to the convoy. Any characters who left after the prologue leave their weapons in the convoy, so we've got a lot of extra stuff thanks to the characters who left. Next off is Reclass, so this works a little bit differently than it does in Awakening and Fates. As you can see from the corner, you're allowed a certain number of characters per class type. Of course, the number goes up the more characters you get, but you only get a certain number of them at the moment. You can freely reclass otherwise, you don't need any sort of seal, you just have to pay attention to how your stats change. And of course Aaron here gets different classes because, well, he's pre-promoted. In addition, if you complete the hard mode of this game, you actually get more classes to choose from, so I am actually missing a few. I don't quite have all the choices I possibly could have, because I've never beaten hard mode, because I've never really bothered. Anyway, the armory allows you to buy basic weapons. Its stock never changes, so you pretty much just buy iron weapons. You're going to have to buy stronger weapons from the chapters themselves. That being said, half the time iron weapons are what I need anyway, so the armory is super useful. Make sure to keep it in mind. You can also forge weapons, which honestly I don't particularly like doing just because there's durability in this game. Therefore, no matter what changes you make, once the weapon breaks, it's still gone. These are the max stats you can give to at least iron swords. I haven't really tested it out with other weapons, but yeah, as you can see, a full forge is really pricey, so even late game, it's not worth doing that. You can use it to make up for a few shortcomings, but otherwise I don't find it too helpful, just because of how expensive it is, and again, durability, it doesn't help. Anyway, I guess this guy's our superior. Hey Lang, how's it going? Okay, well, a few things. First off, that's a bit of a surprise that General Lorenz is leading the rebels, and at that, not a good surprise. Second off, Lang here, has a bit of an attitude. And, oh yeah, he's just gonna casually murder everyone. Remember how Shadow Dragon starts with Martha just killing some pirates and then the King of Talos is just like, hey, go lead an army now. Yeah, this game ramps up a lot faster because now we have Lang, and within a short conversation, we find out that Lang is pretty much the worst. So yeah, he's threatening us right from the get-go, and now he's going to go off and do some war crimes, so yeah, and I like how Marth's immediate reaction is just, what the fuck just happened? It's a pretty good reaction. I'm kinda sharing Marth's sentiments right now. I feel like if Lang's around, maybe a rebellion's not a bad thing. Fight the power that is Lang. Also, I guess we're playing as Jagan in this game. I don't know, like every single Fire Emblem has one character who's like, hey, I'll be a tactician. Just like, I don't know, Malladus? You remember Malladus, right? From Shadow Dragon? He was the brick wall that was there for Marth to talk to. Oh well, anyway, so let's talk about Aaron for a moment. So in case anybody's been wondering, a Jagan, named of course after the old men we've been training under throughout the prologue, is an archetype in Fire Emblem, which basically means that a character starts promoted and with good stats, but has pretty low growth rates and quickly becomes kinda bad overall. Now there is a subset of these characters that have good enough growth rates to at least be moderately good later on in the game, but Aaron really isn't one of them. His growth rates are all fairly low, and his starting stats are okay. They're good enough where he's a decent tank, and thanks to his Silver Lance, he can do some alright damage. He's basically here as a crutch to make sure that you don't die, so if you get yourself into any bad positions, he is good for a quick save. However, you'll quickly find that all he can really do is be a damage sponge. Of course, he also wastes experience, so don't rely on him as a crutch for too long. Otherwise, you're going to hurt yourself as well. Now, that being said, while Aaron's sick and overall really not that good, he's actually a lot better than he was in the original Mystery of the Emblem, in which his stats across the board were all 10%. Except resistance, that was 3%. It was actually pretty similar to original Jagan, who actually had 10% as well, but even fewer, and like the rest of his stats were 0, so yeah, originally Jagan's were completely worthless. I guess Aaron's got that going for him. He doesn't have completely hopeless growth rates. Instead, they're just fairly unfortunate. Okay, well that's done. So, we're just gonna have Aaron visit some houses, cause that's what he's best used for. So, as for the chapter itself, starting off, this is pretty simple. It's mostly just a bunch of axe users, and honestly, they're really not a threat, because we've got a ton of sword users. And of course, if you need to soften them up first, we also have 2 archers. Honestly, Draug here is probably the least useful, though. If you move him forward, then maybe you could have him soak up a hit from that archer, but honestly, in normal mode especially, like, that archer's not a threat. You should be able to kill all these axe users without racking up too much damage on yourself. Like, these 2 aren't going to be a problem, and I doubt the last one will be a problem either. I'll have Cecil take care of that one, I think. That being said, in harder modes there's actually an extra Axeman, or fighter I guess. I guess I should call them by their class names. But anyway, there's an extra fighter, but nothing else too fancy, so it's still not a problem. Just FYI, by the way, there's actually a website that has maps that point out the differences between normal and lunatic modes. It's not hard mode, so I don't know the specific differences for that specific difficulty, but yeah, you can at least see a few of the differences. The site in question is Fire Emblem War of Dragons, which is shortened to Fire Emblem WAD. It's a site that's mostly in Spanish, but it does have an English translation, and of course the maps are super helpful, especially in seeing differences that I'm not going to see in the game itself. Anyway though, yeah, a thief appeared, but you don't really have to worry about him too much. Even if he moves automatically in harder modes, thieves generally don't target, like, the thieves generally don't target characters, at least if there's a village. If they're just in a normal chapter, they'll either go after chests or they will attack you. If there's no treasure or village to be had, yeah, that's when they'll attack you. Though if there is a village or treasure chest in the chapter, but you take care of those before they get to them, they'll either try to escape the map, or they'll just attack you if you bar their way. Though that being said, I'm pretty sure I've seen a thief just, like, sidle up to a character and do nothing if said character blocks the path, which is really not a good plan for that thief. It's kind of unfortunate. Well, for them anyway. For me, it doesn't matter. There's no point at which killing a thief is a bad thing, so really that's just bad for them. Anyway, this is actually going over a bit of backstory. It's nothing that came up in Shadow Dragon, but there were a couple of Grustian children who were captured in the last war by Garneth. Again, it wasn't mentioned in Shadow Dragon, but if you watched the Shadow Dragon LP, there was a brief mention of the children in the 4th Arcania Saga chapter. Camus mentions them and why he doesn't actually go after Garneth or Medius directly, because if he did directly rebel against them, Garneth would have killed the children, and, you know, in general that's bad. It's even worse when the children in question are the Prince and Princess of Grust. Okay, that's a pretty funny line out of context, but, like, honestly, with Lang here, it is good to clarify that sort of thing. No, I'm not going to kill or kidnap your children. Please stay calm. It's fine. I mean, she's anime, so probably not. I mean, I don't believe she's a grown woman either, because, again, anime, but, like, not 10, probably. No. How? No. Lady, please stop trying to pawn off your granddaughter. That's weird and creepy. Also, she refers to herself in the third person, so even if she is an adult, no. Anyway, future me talk about her. Alright, well, I guess we'll just ignore Melicia's weirdly creepy grandmother and focus on her stats. So, her base stats aren't really amazing, with the exception of her luck, which, how the hell did that get so high? However, you should notice that she's level 1, and while those base stats are still pretty low for a level 1 character, it doesn't really matter. She's a healer, she's gonna be doing healing. The rest of her growth rates should make up for that in no time at all, and most importantly, she starts out with a C rank in staves, meaning she's already way ahead of the competition, you know, the old man that's not even in our team at the moment. But even still, C rank's really good. It means she's going to be maxing out her staff rank in no time. Actually, it will take a little bit of time, but less so than most of the other healers are going to get. She's fast, and the standard cleric promotion will give her an extra 10% to her magic, so honestly she's pretty good all around. Her only real problem when she gets to fight is pretty much her skill. Her low skill means that she's not going to be hitting much, and she's not really going to be getting that many crits. I mean, her defense is also a problem. You don't want to take her up against archers at their own range, but it's not really surprising that a cleric doesn't have much defense, so you should already be prepared for that. Okay, I did that thing. Let's go to a house. Okay, so anyway, other than weird, awkward introductions, it's nice to have a healer in Chapter 1. More specifically, one that's not Rise, because, of course, in Shadow Dragon, Rise was our first healer, and he wasn't good in Shadow Dragon, and oh wow! Okay, so, Rhodey blocked the path, and the thief attacked him. Of course, we did go to the village, so that's probably why. But as I said, from time to time, they just won't. Sometimes the AI is just kinda dumb. Alright, so the strategy here is honestly pretty simple from here on out. Once we clear out the area, we're going to be passing through those mountains, and we're basically just going to be sending sword users forward, not too far forward so they don't get hit too many times. And yeah, it's pretty much going to be it. We're going to be playing defensively. So, I should mention some mechanics that were in Mystery of the Emblem, but not this game. So, I'm mentioning this because in the original Mystery of the Emblem, Lorenz actually had a broken lance, I believe. It was some kind of broken weapon, but that was actually a thing in the SNES games. Now, normally in Fire Emblem, you're probably familiar with weapons breaking and then the scraps just disappearing into the ether. In the SNES games, however, weapons would break and they would then, be an actual item, which, technically speaking, is still usable, just not very good. Stabs, I believe, are just completely functionally useless, but other than that, weapons would basically just... they'd be usable, but they wouldn't have any good stats, so it's not recommended that you actually use them, because they weigh you down, they take up valuable inventory space, they have no extra might or aim. Actually, I think they might have had some aim, but yeah, nothing good. So just in general, you shouldn't use it. But of course, it also made Lorenz an easier target. That being said, don't attack Lorenz. We can talk to him with Marth. So yeah, let's maybe not murder Lorenz like I did in an alternate dimension in Shadow Dragon. Anyway, though, yeah, it was present in all of the SNES games. You could use a hammer and staff to repair them, or, in the case of Genealogy of the Holy War, go back to town and repair the item in question in town. So, I don't know if I've posted the first bonus video of this yet by the time this is up. I don't think so, but in the prologue, Ogma actually mentions that he had a mission from the King of Talus, which, if you remember from an earlier villager, he mentioned the ties between Talus and Lorenz. Of course, in Shadow Dragon, that meant that both Marth and Seda could recruit Lorenz, but of course, as we saw earlier, the Marth conversation was the canonical one, I guess, if the flashback is to be believed. Here, though, it just means that, yeah, a Talus mercenary has been sent to aid Lorenz, who's really not in a good position right now, especially since the princess really doesn't want to leave his side. Well, thanks, Ogma. I guess that saves us the trouble. Of course, then Ogma goes in the complete wrong direction to actually find Lorenz. Oh boy, he's burning down villages off-screen in the opposite direction, so... oh dear. History would have been different if Ogma went the other way, I guess, but... then again, he might have tried to fight us, and we wouldn't want that. Anyway, though, one other mechanic I want to mention before I forget about it later on is dismounting. Dismounting was also present in all the SNES games, though it's not really prevalent in Genealogy. Only the Lord is able to dismount. Everyone else, no, they can't dismount, but... Anyway, dismounting basically means that any character on any type of mount, be it horse, Pegasus, or dragon, would be able to leave their mount and basically become, a separate class. In this game, it's mostly just knights, with the exception of horsemen who would dismount to become hunters. Now, this actually removes their weakness to cavalier-based weapons, so, rapier's not really useful as an example, just because, rapiers can't be used by enemies, but yeah, any weapon that could, kill horses, or... actually, no, better example, it would mean that bow users couldn't be effective against Pegasus Knights, because Pegasus Knights could just dismount. So it removed any weaknesses. However, it does change the weapons you can equip, and I believe for the most part it's just swords, which is a much bigger problem in Thracia, because there are a whole lot of characters who just don't have a very high level in the weapon that they use when they dismount, and then it becomes harder to use them. Now, there are chapters where you do have to dismount, indoor chapters to be specific. No matter what, characters on horses or whatever have you would get off their mounts, and they would have to fight like that. Of course, in Genealogy that wasn't really a big deal because all maps were outdoors, which is probably why dismounting wasn't really a thing in that game. It's kind of a neat mechanic, but honestly, it's really more of an annoyance to the player overall, which I would like to see it brought back, just kind of more fleshed out and maybe a little less inconvenient. It can have drawbacks since it does have advantages, but for the most part, just don't make it like Thracia. It was bad in that game. That being said, though, it does seem like there were plans to include dismounting in Shadow Dragon, because there is actually unused data for it that was found. I would also assume that if it had made it into Shadow Dragon, it might have also made it into this game, but that never panned out, so yeah, no dismounting. People on steeds will still ride them indoors. And so, weakened and with nowhere left to turn, General Lorenz takes his life. And not only that, he's also revealed that Marth might be hoping for something impossible here, because it is true, it's kind of weird that a man as cruel as Lang would be chosen as any sort of leader by Hardin. Hardin is an honorable man. If Lang showed any signs of being, well, Lang, I think it's easy to guess that things wouldn't have gone well for Lang. At best, he would have been fired. Well, I mean, more so how could that happen to Minerva, who's pretty good at fighting. Macedon, I can see how there's a rebellion there. Honestly, like, the generals are kinda the worst, aren't they? Yeah, that probably would be a problem. I mean, the intro did kind of go out of its way to mention that Arcania has a powerful army with a lot of soldiers.